I am reviewing a new yarn to me. It's been out for a little while, I think, but I haven't been able to find it in Canada, so I ordered this from Hirschner's in the US. I got 3 balls. They were on sale for $10 US, sorry, $9.99. And then I paid an extra $20 in shipping, so $50 later. I hope I like it. So this is from Yarnspirations. It's a Red Heart branded yarn called Granny All-in-One, or Granny Square All-in-One, I guess. No color switching, keep on stitching. I've seen some reviews of this already, but this is basically a ball of yarn designed to make 5 round granny squares without having to change colors every round. So you have 2 ends to weave in instead of 10. So I found that actually quite fascinating. It is one of the very few times that Facebook has had an ad for something I would actually be interested in, so that was nice. So let's take a look. First of all, I was worried that this would just be Red Heart Super Saver, which I cannot use because I find it too scratchy. I had a whole plan about, put on some band-aids on my tensioning finger and stuff in case it was, but this actually feels softer than I was expecting. I've got some impeccable loops and threads impeccable here. I'd say the impeccable's a little tiny bit softer. I'll have more thoughts on that once I start crocheting with it. So let's look at the information. It's a worsted weight, or 4. Wash and dry, don't iron. I don't know what the triangle is. I don't buy clothes that requires the triangle, so I don't know what it means. It's interesting. I wasn't expecting there to be a knitting needle gauge on this. I'm gonna have to try knitting with it, see what happens. All right, so the crochet hook, they suggest is bigger. I don't know, I'll play with that once I get the yarn out. And it's suggesting that your 5 round square is going to be 6 inches square or 15 centimeters square. And you see the pattern here is actually for a vest, which, I don't know. We'll take the ball band off and see if it's in there. So the first thing I noticed when I took this out of the bag was that it was softer than I expected. And the second thing I noticed is, look, it's the center pull. It's just hanging out. It's amazing. I think all yarn companies should do this. I think people would be willing to spend a little bit more on their yarn if this was required. You'll also notice that the end here has got a tiny bit of the outside color, which is the white, before the inside color. Now, I'm going to have to look it up again, but there is a pattern video, probably a written pattern as well, that explains exactly how to use this to make a granny square. I think it leaves 4-inch tails for weaving in, which is a little shorter than I'd like, but I can work with it. Yeah, so I'm excited to get started with this. I got 3 balls in 3 different colors. So this one, what's this one called? Soft White Pink Punch. Yeah, so from what I got from the website, the first color is the outside color of your square. And then Pink Punch would be the name of the colorway. So this is Pink Punch with a soft white border. This one is Soft White and it's Green Scream. So again, it's got the soft white border. I'm hoping they're close enough in color, because I thought, if I really didn't like this yarn and couldn't think of anything else to make with it, that I would just make a blanket and donate it, right? So I also wanted to have 3 colors. I picked 3 colors I thought could go together as a blanket just in case. So that's that one. And I also got Soft White Amethyst. So I'm looking forward to that. I normally wouldn't film on a Sunday, but I wanted to play with this today. So I wanted to get my first thoughts out. And that sound you hear in the background, other than my cat, is snow clearing, because we got quite a bit of snow overnight here in Calgary. So yeah, I'm going to play with this. My plan is to try making a granny square, and I'm also going to try some other in the round patterns. I also want to see what it looks like worked in rows, and I want to see, just what can this do? And the reason why I'm thinking this way is because when I had a blog, I had a whole series on novelty yarns. Every time a yarn company comes out with a novelty yarn, they tell you make a scarf with it. And I was like, yeah, there's only so many scarves a person needs. What else can you do with it? And I might transfer that series to YouTube at some point, but I thought I'm going to start with this. This is new, and I'm excited to try it. So their suggestion is to make a granny square. I want to see what else it does. So as I said before, I'm going to try knitting with it. Little known fact, I actually do know how to knit with needles. I just usually prefer to crochet, and I use the looms to make hats because it's fast and easy, and it gets the most heads warm in the fastest way possible. Yeah, so that's the plan. These 3 colors I think will be interesting to work with. I hope that this comes to Canada soon, or maybe it's already here and I just haven't found it yet, for less than $50 for 3 balls. And that's $50 US, so it's probably closer to like 70, 75 Canadian for 3 balls of yarn, acrylic yarn. Once I've played with it some more, I will tell you my thoughts. So let me show you what I made first. I started with this square. I had to do a lot of fiddling to get it to work. You can see it cups a little bit. That's not that unusual for granny squares. It would sort itself out just fine in a blanket. I did not use the granny square pattern that they suggested because, I mean, I thought I might because, you know, to do a good review, but a lot of people have done that already and I would never use it in real life, so I did not do it. This is my own granny square pattern that I followed, and basically how it differs from theirs is that I don't put chain 1 spaces in between my groups of 3 double crochet. Like I just do 3 double crochet in this hole and then I just go on to do 3 double crochets. There's no extra chains. The only change in this square are in the corners. Yeah, so I don't know. This was the first square I made. It took me a bit to sort of get the feel for how to do it. When I finished this, I thought I would try making a circle, and that's how my circle came out. And again, it's a little cuppy because I had to go pretty tight on the last round. I found this throughout all of the things that I did in the round that I needed to do my last round really tightly, and I don't know why that would be. It was easier to do a circle and get the color change timing right. You can see though, when I went tighter on the last round that I must have ripped back to just here because this side is cupping and this side is not. And on a circle, that matters. On the granny square, it doesn't, because when it's in the blanket, it can stretch and squish into anything, any size where it needs to fit in. But the circle, yeah. So I didn't weave in the ends. I'm going to pull these out and make something else with it. So then I tried a few other things that didn't quite work out. I want to show you what did work though. I thought I would try to make a hat. So I used my Hope's hat pattern and got this thing. I love this. It's got the look of like a scrappy hat, but I only had 2 ends to weave in. I really love the colors and how they laid out in this pattern. I'll link this pattern below, but this is basically just a crochet hat that's made with single crochet in the back loop only. You make it sideways, you seam it up. It's got some zigzagginess to it to make it kind of interesting, but yeah, I love how this hat came out. So I'll be donating that to charity. So then I thought I'm going to try this yarn with the double-ended hook. So I made a deco hat. There. So I added in some loops and threads, impeccable, to get that dark gray. But I love how this turned out too. You can see this sort of lavender color was the middle. So you can see it working this way. I just love how this turned out. I kind of wish I'd just done the Mio's hat, the regular one, but I thought this one would be interesting with the sort of the boxes to see there. But if you made a Mio's hat, it would look more or less like this side, but on both sides. So yeah, I really love using it for this. I love how this looks. I mentioned at the beginning that I was going to try to knit with it, and I didn't end up using needles, but you absolutely could. I made this hat on loom. Now, I probably won't be making more of these because I don't like doing worsted weight loom hats. And this is a worsted weight yarn, so I had to get out my flexi loom. I used all of the pieces that weren't the straight bits. So I think I had 38 pegs. So it made a small hat. This doesn't fit my head, but I've got a fairly large head. But look how those stripes turned out. I love this hat. It's so nice. I love the colors. of this, the ball of yarn that I used. I love how the stripes work out. I love, 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 love this. Red Heart, if you're watching this, if you make a chunky yarn version of this, I would buy so much of that just to make hats on my regular loom. Because again, I don't think I'll be making any more hats like this, but if you have the patience to do, here's the inside. If you have the patience to do a loom hat at worsted weight, this stuff's amazing. Look at this, look at this. Okay, sorry, I'm going on about it. So out of the same color of yarn, a friend suggested to me that people were finding it easier to do hexagons with this yarn than the squares. So I did a hexagon, and she was right. It was so much easier. I barely had to do any ripping back. Even my yarn ends, I think, look a little bit more like they're supposed to, given how the yarn works. I believe, let me think. Yes. So I really loved how this worked out, except for the outside color. I had to go down a hook size to get the outside color to fit. So what I think I will do, if I ever make a hexagon blanket out of this yarn, I will stop at 4 rounds and I will get a white yarn to use to join them together, or a black yarn, or whatever color I decide to go. But yeah, I don't know what it is about the outside round, but I had so much trouble getting the outside round right on all of the projects that I did in the round. The next thing that I did was a speed test. I will put a card with a link to the raw footage and link it in the description as well. I made these 2 squares. This is the granny square yarn from Red Heart. This is 5 colors of Impeccable, although I think the blue might be Bernat Premium. And I timed them. They're almost the same size. This one's a tiny bit smaller, but they would work in the same blanket, because you see the little one can stretch and it still looks fine. I'm not going to put these together because I'm not sure they go. This colorway is so weird to me. But yeah, so I did the speed test. The granny square yarn took me less time to make the square, including weaving in the ends. The difference was about 58 seconds. Over the course of a blanket, that can add up to, over an hour, depending on how many squares you have, right? I would say, though, I'm not a fan of doing my squares in this yarn. And it pains me to say this because I love the yarn. That's my review. I love the yarn. But making this square, it was like playing yarn chicken on every round. It's like, am I going to get to the end of the round before I run out of color? And if you watch the footage, you'll see it was the last round that took me the most effort. This time difference, or this speed test that I did, really only tells you how much time I would save by using this yarn. Your numbers are going to differ because your gauge will be different from mine, your speed at crochet will be different from mine, and your speed at weaving in your ends will be different from mine. So if you are a slower crocheter, and we have the same, like a similar amount of time for weaving in ends, this one's going to take longer. Most of the time spent making this square is ripping back and recrocheting. If your end weaving is slower than mine, but your crochet is about the same, or maybe a little slower, this one might be faster. It really depends on your numbers. So what would I recommend? I would recommend you buy all of this stuff and try it. See if you like making granny squares with it. Because if you don't, there's amazing things you can make that aren't granny squares. You can do your hexagons, right? So I would definitely recommend it. This yarn, it's not too scratchy. It's not the softest yarn I've ever used, but I don't find it scratchy either. Try making a granny square. Time yourself if you want. Time yourself compared to doing it the regular way if you're changing colors all the time, and see if it actually is a time saver for you, or if you enjoyed the process. And if you don't, make a bunch of other things. If you do, go buy a bunch more to make your blanket. That is my recommendation. Okay, so the last thing that I tried, I thought of it when I was doing the speed test. I will put a picture here. I joined a blanket using the granny square yarn. I used a continuous join as you go method for joining all my squares together. I used my own pattern of All Squared Away Newborn 10. I made all the squares black because I thought it would make the color of the join pop. Like the whole point of doing this was to make the join the main feature. I love how this turned out. It's going to be tricky to donate to charity like I usually do because of all the black, but I'm going to see what I can do. I think it would look even more amazing if you used one of the granny square yarns that ends in black and did white squares. Like if you could match up your colors a little better. I wanted to do white squares, but I didn't think I would be able to find a white that matched the white in the yarn, in the granny square yarn. One last thing is, in the beginning, I was talking about the vest pattern. It is on the back of the label. Let's see if I can find the label. So it is, here's my label here. Remember that we talked about this? It does have the pattern on the back of the label. And it calls for, I can show you there, it calls for Red Heart Super Saver for joining. It's suggesting a Red Heart Super Saver soft white, so maybe that would have matched the soft white of the yarn. But I don't like using Super Saver. I find it too scratchy. So in conclusion, I kind of hate this yarn for granny squares. I love it otherwise. I love this yarn. I am definitely buying more. I did find it in Canada. They have it at Walmart for 11 something. We'll just say just under $12, which is not a bad price. Problem is that every time I go, it's like a random assortment. So making a blanket or a larger project would be difficult, but I'm not going to use it for that. So I will definitely be buying more of this. I'm a little worried because of the anxiety I experienced with the yarn chicken making this square. And I have to believe that would go down a little bit the more squares you make because you'll have a better feel for the gauge. But I mean, if you put the project down and then come back to it a couple days later, maybe not. I'm worried that they're going to discontinue the yarn because I mean, those of you who have been around the channel for a while know that granny squares are my thing. I've got, I think, 132 patterns right now that are available, at least through Ravelry, and like 80% of those, maybe 90%, are granny square based. I learned how to crochet because of granny squares. In fact, this style of granny square where you change colors every round, this is my raison d'etre when it comes to crochet, and I don't like making granny squares with it. It's granny square yarn. And the reason why I'm worried that it's going to be discontinued is because I love the yarn for literally everything else. Literally everything else. So I would say, buy it while you can, because I don't think it's going to last very long. I hope I'm wrong. I hope this review helped you make a decision about this, and thank you for watching.